the month of May, June, July. So you take advantage of the things that need the rain, take this period to actually do it, and that could actually, count for a lot. But otherwise, sometimes in the city center, this is not a situation that people want. They would rather, if it were up to anyone to, direct where the rain should go, I've had sentences like, this should be raining in places where they are farming, where people need it. So I guess there is a challenge right there. People in the city center don't need the rains. They feel like, no, this is not for us. We have no use for it. Let it go. But then again, they forget that we also have we are working towards a green city, so we need these rains.
So we need the rains to actually come and do something.
Yeah, we do.
As long as they come in measurable amounts, in necessary amounts, because when they become too much, it becomes a hindrance to very many things. Transportation, people will get late when it comes to work, and I mean it makes a lot of sense, because when you get into our roads, usually by 9-10 there is a lot of traffic. You're wondering and asking, why is there traffic at 10 a.m.? Because I would believe this is an hour where people are already at their workplaces respectively. So there are very many things that this rain slows down, especially here in the city when it comes in large amounts. Well, Felix, good morning.
Good morning.
Thursday is here.
I tell you, guess it's a time where we think of throwing back, and there's lots of memories that always come when it rains. But there's this one thing I was thinking about. I used the taxi one of the days last week.
Yes.
Deliberately. Now, when I got in the taxi, there's a memory that came to me that I had spent like 15 years.
I'm trying to imagine you
in the taxi. Oh no, you didn't.
I did, and I think it was from Ntinda via Wandegea, because I was going to KPC.
Yes. So
I thought, man, let me try out something today. First of all, I waited for a taxi for a long time. That was one of I almost gave up, honestly.
That goes without saying.
And then I noticed they introduced these Tondeka buses.
Yes.
Now, there was a Tondeka bus behind me, so I think that's why probably were no taxis. But then, when I got into the taxi, there's a way there's a chair that they flip.
Usually at the entrance.
The one for the
yes,
conductor.
I think it was the guy flipping the car thing. And then actually, I can't fit.
Because it has to be very flexible
you know how you struggle to enter.
Pass.
Then after entering, the man stops like every after. So those memories are coming back, how life, how you get mad when you're in a taxi, and this man they just don't go. But then they also keep on asking you to arrange car, like, do you want us to go with an empty taxi just to take you? But he's the icebreaker. Do you know how people in that last seat of the taxi don't want to sit at the end? The other side, like...
Yes, I know, the extreme.
So they keep on doing like this all the time. When
yes.
You get the point, and then there are people who refuse to pass. You're like, no. We won't get it.
I don't know if there should be a system of how to sit in the taxi.
Who should put this?
Because I want to believe, I haven't gotten the chance to use the Tondeka buses and whatnot, but I do believe, I think people know.
Those are the specials. I mean, those are the upstanding capacity and sitting capacity.
Yes.
There's nothing like Mpitako. But in the taxi, like that thing used to annoy me. I remembered when I saw someone do it to the other person, like, you know how they squeeze their knees like this?
Yes.
Trying to tell you to...
That is why we need
and if you actually sit, I think in those fast seats, that's the problem. Because whoever will be coming out, you ask to step out.
Like this middle, it's like a corridor. It's not like the side corridor seat. You can stand
another thing.
So of course, I really feel for the people who use taxis, and much respect. Clearly, there's a lot you go through. We don't.
I mean, they're not supposed to be comfortable, I guess. That is like the
They're supposed to be comfortable.
It's public transport.
It's public transport, so there is no comfort in public. You can't be comfortable 100%. We've all been there, Felix. We've all been there.
I used to see men at stages. For them, if there's no front seat, they don't enter the taxi. Those people are also there.
I think it's more reason for you to work hard and get your own car. And again, it takes me back to the argument.
It's no wonder borders are many,
Yes.
because
Yeah, by the
people
way,
have
the
moved away
convenience.
from that. Yeah, you can't deal with taxi. People would rather take borders, however unsafe they are.
And then
but
there's
they
this
get the
thing
comfort
about
of place.
taxis that also actually happened to me on that day. Like, these guys don't reach where they promise they're going to reach. I don't know if you remember that thing. I think they've already taken the money. So these guys have a trick of asking for the money before, like when you're like a couple of distance away from where you're supposed to go.
Yes.
Then like, say, mzweleze. After you kuziweleza.
That's it. Let me tell you what I used to do.
Come
I
on
used
now.
to ensure that I have, you know, the changed money, the smaller denominations. If say it's 5,000, I would ensure that I have probably like a 4 1,000 notes and 2 500 coins, so that in case it has to be like about 1,500 or 2,500, then clearly I would be able to sort it. So when the conductor says muziweleze, I would never actually forward that money. No. I would always pay when I am coming out of the taxi.
Then you're going to have a very long, big argument with the conductor all the time.
What's the most you're going to do? Are you going to beat me? Are you going to kill me? I will give you your money if you're asking for 3,500 or 4,000. If that is the transport fare, then I am actually going to give you your 4,000 as I'm coming out of the taxi. It's very simple. So, you know, you cannot avoid, if you can't beat the system, yeah,
but you know, Philomena,
you need to join it by fighting it.
You know, this taxi thing, there's something that is very disturbing. Their mannerisms are all the same. Like, all the same. Whether it's a taxi in Mokono, taxi in Kabale, like, they have the same tendencies. That thing of getting money and they never get well.
They don't
you know how they're calling the
balance
taxi.
in
They say,
time.
we'll get the cabana taxi, park and pia, it's like park, whatever. Then I go to the park. It used to be Antonio's. And then what's more, like those then they give you to another taxi. Those things, if you...
Well, because they can't make
Taxi
it, and then,
guys.
yeah. I mean, there is a lot, that is why people have continuously been asked for a full regulatory system of these taxis.
That's also why people don't
especially
even
public
care when
transport.
no one is fighting for taxi people. when Tondekas come, when Gachari Mabaga, no one is fighting for you. They're just saying,
Everyone is running for the most convenient public transport.
There is something called Gachari Mabaga. Felix.
Anyway.
You don't know those buses?
No,
They're
I
called
didn't
what?
know.
The ones that go to
I know somebody
Gayaza
who-
is called what?
Gachari Mabaga. No, I
They're
doubt.
called
Wakule Nume, I
Wa-
think, something
Wa-
like
yeah,
that.
Wa-
Yes.
sorry.
Well, speaking of which, I don't know if
I
Robert here
remember
has
it now.
had an experience over there, or at least back in the good old days, if you ever got an opportunity to experience public transport.
No.
Well, I would love to hear from him. Robert, good morning.
Morning. Well, it's raining everywhere, and I must say these roads are hard of money. Hope they are worked upon very, very quickly. But my experience with public transport is the person who has not yet boarded is important. But once you sit in there, you cease to be important. They own you. If you're still outside,
Yes.
if you're still outside, they can reverse
Honestly.
and wait. Those inside are complaining. Let's go. Let's go.
Those
Let's
people
go.
they can even stop on a green traffic light
They'll
for
even
you.
tell you. They'll even the passengers inside. They even say ufika tuviremu wano. But they are waiting for one person. However much you take your time, they are patient. They are waiting for you. Now enter. That's when you tell them, Masao. They'll, if there is a passenger some distance away from where you're supposed to disembark, they rather drive you and pick that passenger. So my experience, I've learned one thing, that hell, once you're inside there, you cease to be a human being. You're their property now.
Yes.
But as long as you're still out, that's why the very few times I use public transport, I also enjoy my time when I'm still outside. Muzeyo Uganda. You know, they expect you to do to show some sign. That's Muzeyo Uganda. If I'm going, I pocket.
You're the people that
Then they come back.
That's not fair.
Then they rewind because it is my moment. Because as soon as I get inside there, it's not going to be my moment anymore. So I rather enjoy that time while I'm still
But Philomena
there.
and Robert, maybe probably and Molen, what is your best moment in taxis? I can tell you mine. Yes, I had some best moments as a
I
kid.
also have best moments.
Do you know what? Sometimes they forget to collect money from me if you have had that experience. The guy has just forgotten I was a woman what they said. And then you go out with your 500, man.
When was that?
Back in the
From
day, as
school,
a child.
yeah.
Yes.
My best moment is
And that happened a lot to me. I was
the fun I get from people lying in taxis sometimes.
lying.
Lying, yes. Someone was stood in front of me. We were heading to Entebbe, and he mentioned where he is on phone.
Yes.
I was like, Jesus me. So I had to ask the conductor, because I had slept a bit, where is this taxi heading to? Because this side, the guy said, ndi mukono natera okutuukako tujja Jinja, meaning you are in Mukono, but you are coming towards Jinja. And this side,
There are different.
kuremitiya nawano nga nakayise bulenga. And I'm like, where is this taxi going?
In the bypass, you're in the bypass.
Because of like,
Well, the
where is
tales
this taxi going?
The tales of public transport are very,
So-
very interesting. I must tell you, every other day there is something that just happens in the taxis or even these buses. It's very, very crazy. But I'll tell you one thing that very many Ugandans were worried. You remember that time when NEMA came out to actually announce the dustbins and having the dustbins in the cars and taxis. One of the biggest worries I did, notice from the public is that we are going to suffer with a lot of trash with trash stocked in the trash cans in these taxis. And I'm wondering, are we actually saying that when it comes to the general hygiene in taxis, is it questionable? Is it because no one will definitely do the job of, emptying all these trash cans? Well, I don't know how that is going on so far, but I think I should go and start, I should do an investigation personally and find out how that is, turning out for most people, especially the commuters that really use the taxis on a daily basis. Well, it's Good Morning Uganda. We have a lot happening, and of course local news, looking at international news. Well, more saddening stories coming in from Sudan. Well, even after we know that the 72-hour ceasefire is still happening, well, we do have fights erupting in and several cities around the country. So it is not yet well. We really have to pray and also to see what's going to come out of this. Well, we'll be discussing more about this much later on as Good Morning Uganda goes on. For now, we'll look into our local stories. What is happening?
We'll begin with our brothers and sisters, the 211 who were evacuated and arrived successfully from Khartoum, Sudan, following a bloody conflict that broke out between the troops loyal to Army Chief General Abdel Fattah Burhan and Mohammed Hamoud, a commander of the powerful Parliamentary Rapid Support Forces, RSF. The group touched ground at Old Entebbe Airport at 2:30 a.m. local time aboard a chartered Uganda Airlines plane and were received by, among others, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, that is the Chief Police Commissioner and Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs, Honorable Nuwa Bijirwa, among others.
The Minister for Education, Janet Museveni, has revealed that the Ministry of Education is in the final stages of the process to start the review of the lower primary curriculum 2024. Minister Janet Museveni says she has already given the ministry a go-ahead to have the review start off a review of the curriculum that enables the practical, valuable and age-centered curriculum. The minister was officiating at the opening of the first international conference on curriculum development in the commemoration of the 50 years of its anniversary.
And moving on, Uganda Revenue Authority is considering adopting Tanzania's risk-based assessment tax formula policy as a way of creating and enhancing tax formulation. Ale Nasanga, Assistant Commissioner, Research and Innovation at the tax body, noted this during a regional tax revenue authorities held in Kampala. Ale Nasanga, the Assistant Commissioner for Research and Innovation at URA, noted that more will increase Uganda's tax collection base. Non-tax compliance by multinational companies is one of the key challenges that African revenue authorities face, as Juko Pititala, professor at the University of Eskin, explains.
And the Minister of State for National Guidance, Godfrey Chavanga, has urged the public to verify information before sharing it on social media. Now, campaigns are targeting different sectors of the economy. He also commended the use of the internet to seek accountability from relevant authorities and highlights the ministry's units that assess concerns raised on social media to find solutions.
Crossing over to the international stories, the Pope will for the first time allow women to vote at an influential global meeting of bishops in October, a move that has been welcomed as a historic first. The new rules announced on Wednesday will give 5 religious sisters voting rights at the Synod, which is a papal advisory board. In the past, women were only allowed to attend the gathering as observers. Men will still cast the majority of the votes at the influential gathering. Nevertheless, the reforms are seen as a significant shift for the Roman Catholic Church, which has been male-dominated for centuries. The U.S. Best Women's Ordination Conference, which advocates for women priests, has called the reform a significant crack in the stained glass ceiling. Now, for years, Vatican representatives and bishops resisted, moving the goalpost with every synod as to why women were not allowed to vote. Chinese President Xi Jinping has spoken to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for the first time since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, with Beijing saying it wanted to send an envoy to Kiev to serve as a mediator to pursue a political settlement. The phone call on Wednesday lasted nearly an hour and was long and meaningful, according to the Ukrainian president. I believe that this call, as well as the appointment of Ukraine's ambassador to China, will give a powerful impetus to the development of our bilateral relations, Zelensky wrote on Twitter. The first known wartime phone call between the two leaders comes after Xi and Zelensky both said they were willing to speak to each other following Xi's visit to Moscow back in March.
Now, fighting is continuing in parts of Sudan despite a 72-hour ceasefire largely holding. Speaking via phone from Odman, the city adjoining the capital Khartoum, BBC's Mohamed Asman says fighting broke out near TV and radio buildings. Now, there is no fuel and lack of doctors, and people are struggling to access food and money, according to the reporter. Sudanese army chief has reportedly approved extending the ceasefire due to the expiry on Friday for 72-hour. General Abdel Fattah also gave an initial approval to the proposal from the Regional African Bloc Intergovernmental Authority on Development, according to the news agencies there. The proposal suggests sending envoy from the Sudanese army and rival group Rapid Support Forces to Juba in South Sudan to discuss the details. The current ceasefire began at midnight local time at 2200 GMT on Monday, bringing a pause to a conflict which erupted on 15th of April amid a power struggle between the leaders of the army and the RSF. And in climate news, the article published in the journal Human Nutrition and Metabolism, scientists discussed the role of climate change in modulating human gut microbiota composition and the aging process. Reviewing available studies on these topics, scientists have come to a conclusion that climate change can considerably influence the bidirectional relationship between gut microbiota and aging. An induction in greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide and ozone, and the reduction in natural carbon sinks are the major causes of climate change, primarily characterized by global warming and environmental pollution. Now, climate change-related increases in temperatures can negatively impact the growth of soil microorganisms, leading to alternation in soil microbial composition. And studies have also shown that global warming can alter the ecosystem by reducing soil liable carbon, increasing the bacteria and fungi, and the bacteria.
Well, I am bound to actually ask Omolin, I don't know, is there anything that is not connected to climate change at any one point in time?
Well, it seems like the whole ecosystem is connected, right from, you hear studies about soils now and the organisms that live there. So a slight change in the atmosphere or temperatures or water levels does affect everything, life itself. Remember when we used to have those studies about flora and fauna and, you know, find out that we wouldn't exist without them? That's why with climate change everything is affected, because it does affect flora and fauna.
I mean, we cannot really run away from it, whether you like it or not. You could be part of the problem, or you could actually be part of the solution. Well, away from that, speaking of solutions, what have you done for your health this morning? Have you been quite busy for it? Well, every other day we do remind you to ensure that you do something nice for your health, okay? Because it's important. We need a healthy population. We need a healthy Uganda. And speaking of which, Robert here, ready to spread the word?
Oh, definitely. Always prepared to ensure that our Ugandans are very, very healthy. And of course, with climate change, now looking at the weather that we are having, well, colds are very common. So you must boost your immune system. And how do you do that? This is not treatment. These are immune boosters. So get yourself hallelujah jingati, hallelujah tamarind drink, and hallelujah banana juice, so that you're healthy, your body is able to fight off a number of diseases.
Well, it's good morning, Uganda. We will go for a break. When we get back, we'll be talking about the Sudan crisis, how it is affecting the East African region as a whole. And of course, following up on the Ugandans that were safely evacuated all the way from there back here in the home country. All of that and much, much more for you to look out in the next hour. We'll be back shortly. Good morning. The weather patterns are being very consistent, and I could say we're at a point where they are quite predictable. At least if you have been following up on the last days, you know that the rains have been coming in quite hard and the same timing. Well, I cannot complain about the timing, because I guess if it was up to most people, this could be the ideal time without having to obstruct the day's activities. Well, by now you should be ready for it mentally and physically. Get all that you have to get to ensure that you navigate these rains that befall us every single morning. Well, for how long? Mollen should be able to tell us when to expect these rains to actually stop, or maybe when the patterns could be checking. Speaking of which, Mollen, good morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Philomena, and to our viewers. Quite a cold one, but still good morning. And it's just that you look at how the rains have been performing this season right from March, and it has been quite intense, at least from the projections that were even given before the season. You see that there has been quite a pickup, especially for a lot of areas in Western Uganda, the southern sector. So I know that a lot of farmers have benefited from these rains. And now that we are almost coming to the cessation, that's when they are starting to reduce. That will be about mid to late May. We could be looking at least a lot of people that have benefited from those. But also you take advantage of the fact that now the rains that are coming through are going to be really at the peak, and we might not get those amounts back as we head towards the month of May, June, July. So you take advantage of the things that need the rain, take this period to actually do it, and that could actually count for a lot. But otherwise, sometimes in the city center, this is not a situation that people want. They would rather, if it were up to anyone to direct where the rain should go, I've had sentences like, this should be raining in places where they are farming, where people need it. So I guess there is a challenge right there. People in the city center don't need the rains. They feel like, no, this is not for us. We have no use for it. Let it go. But then again, they forget that we also have we are working towards a green city, so we need these rains.
So we need the rains to actually come and do something.
Yeah, we do.
As long as they come in measurable amounts, in necessary amounts, because when they become too much, it becomes a hindrance to very many things. Transportation, people will get late when it comes to work, and I mean it makes a lot of sense, because when you get into our roads, usually by 9-10 there is a lot of traffic. You're wondering and asking, why is there traffic at 10 a.m.? Because I would believe this is an hour where people are already at their workplaces respectively. So there are very many things that this rain slows down, especially here in the city when it comes in large amounts. Well, Felix, good morning.
Good morning.
Thursday is here.
I tell you, guess it's that time where we think of throwing back, and there's lots of memories that always come when it rains. But there's this one thing I was thinking about. I used a taxi one of the days last week.
Yes.
Deliberately. Now, when I got in the taxi, there's a memory that came to me that I had spent like 15 years.
I'm trying to imagine you
in the taxi. Oh no, you didn't.
I did, and I think it was from Ntinda via Wandegea, because I was going to KPC.
Yes. So
I thought, man, let me try out something today. First of all, I waited for a taxi for a long time. That was one of I almost gave up, honestly.
That goes without saying.
It's like, and then I noticed they introduced these Tondeka buses.
Yes.
Now, there was a Tondeka bus behind me, so I think that's why probably were no taxis. But then, when I got into the taxi, there's a way this car chair that, there's a chair that they flip.
Usually at the entrance.
The one for the
conductor.
I
thought it was the guy flipping the car thing. And then I told you, like, I can't fit.
Because it has to be very, the weather patterns are being very consistent. And I could say we're at a point where they are quite predictable. At least if you have been following up on the last days, you know that the rains have been coming in quite hard. And the same timing. Well, I cannot complain about the timing, because I guess if it was up to most people, this could be the ideal time without having to obstruct the day's activities. Well, by now you should be ready for it mentally and physically. Get all that you have to get to ensure that you navigate these rains that befall us every single morning. Well, for how long? Mollen should be able to tell us when to expect these rains to actually stop, or maybe when the patterns could be checking. Speaking of which, Mollen, good morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Philomena, and to our viewers. Quite a cold one, but still good morning. And it's just that you look at how the rains have been performing this season right from March, and it has been quite intense, at least from the projections that were even given before the season. You see that there has been quite a pickup, especially for a lot of areas in Western Uganda, the southern sector. So I know that a lot of farmers have benefited from these rains. And now that we are almost coming to the cessation, that's when they are starting to reduce. That will be about mid to late May. We could be looking at least a lot of people that have benefited from those. But also you take advantage of the fact that now the rains that are coming through are going to be really at the peak, and we might not get those amounts back as we head towards the month of May, June, July. So you take advantage of the things that need the rain, take this period to actually do it, and that could actually count for a lot. But otherwise, sometimes in the city center, this is not a situation that people want. They would rather, if it were up to anyone to direct where the rain should go, I've had sentences like, this should be raining in places where they are farming, where people need it. So I guess there is a challenge right there. People in the city center don't need the rains. They feel like, no, this is not for us. We have no use for it. Let it go. But then again, they forget that we also have we are working towards a green city. So we need these rains.
So we need the rains to actually come and do something.
Yeah, we do.
As long as they come in measurable amounts, in necessary amounts.
So how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number and you send it to her chap chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it? Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera, refrain from unnecessary engagement with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Yokato, this is a quick call. I'm almost out of minutes. Now, the center.
Why rush through such important conversations? Airtel Uganda has made it possible for you to call across all networks in Uganda at the best rates with the new Bona voice bundles. Stay connected anytime, anywhere, with minutes valid for calls on all networks. Dial *100*1#. Select voice bundles and select Bona voice bundles today. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
The total number which we had was 300 Ugandans, including 18 who are working at our embassy, and 19 who were on transit going to Mecca, and 120 who are students at Africa International University, and around 120 who are working there in Khartoum, and some few who were on short visit in Khartoum. So the total number was 300, and that is the number which we reported. But and we tried, with the good relationship we keep as the Embassy of Uganda in Khartoum with the Uganda community, we found it easy to reach them through their leadership, the chairman of the Uganda community in Khartoum, and also the chairman of the students, the Ugandan students in Khartoum, plus the leader of the group which was going to Mecca. And also we have a small number of 19 Ugandans who are on treatment at Al Salam Hospital. So with the number which has been evacuated today, the 211, we have 8 who went through Port Sudan. The group which we have come with came through Ethiopia and entered Ethiopia through Gonda Airport, and we moved from Gonda Airport to Baharda, where we were evacuated from by Uganda Airlines. So the other number which is remain, apart from this number which we have come with, there are 8 who were evacuated with the help of Saudi Arabia friends, Saudi embassy. There are 3 who made their way through Port Sudan also. There are 7 who were helped by UN, and there are others who also used the border, Ethiopia-Sudan border, and some others who also went through southern Sudan. So that covers a number of around 250. So I can say that we are remaining with the, roughly 50 Ugandans who are yet to come back home, but we are following them up. We created a database to make sure that we locate them where they are, and we requested their...
Well, His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Yahya Semudu, or the Ambassador of Uganda to Sudan, giving us a brief encounter of how the process of evacuation did go down of our Ugandans, about 211 Ugandans that have been successfully evacuated from Sudan. They did touch ground early as 2:30 a.m. this morning, and as the day goes by, of course, you'll be hearing more stories coming in, of course, along that line. But also just a brief touch-up of what is happening. Well, fighting is continuing in different parts of Sudan despite a 72-hour ceasefire largely holding. And we know that just like any other country, Uganda has been trying so much to have its nationals or citizens brought back home. We have seen countries like UK, countries like Germany also trying so much to have their people evacuated from Sudan back to their home countries. Well, this morning in the newsreel, we'll be giving you some of the highlights and also some of the reports that have been at least reporting about what has been happening throughout the entire process. And very lucky for us this morning to be joined by Edward Rukidi, who is also our colleague here at UBC, who we do understand has been making a very serious follow-up, especially about our fellow Ugandans who have been in Sudan until they touched ground this morning. Now, Edward, if you could, maybe could you take us, give us the encounter, how has it been? Which categories of people have been able to be brought back home, and how has the process all been, all from the start till the end?
Thank you so much, and good morning, viewers. We've been actually following the evacuation of our citizens, fellow Ugandans from Sudan, of course, ever since the conflict erupted some weeks ago. As you've already heard from the ambassador, Ambassador Yahya Semudu, the categories of people that have been evacuated are actually basically about two. We've got students who make up a big number of the 211 that landed at Entebbe this morning. But we've also got the business community that, you know, those who do trade in Khartoum and some other areas of Sudan. But there were also the embassy staff, our embassy in Sudan. They were also, you know, brought this morning. And the government of Uganda, especially President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, this has actually been possible because President Yoweri Museveni took it upon himself to ensure that these Ugandans return safely today, and they chartered a plane, Uganda Airlines plane, to go and pick them. Now, they were supposed to have arrived here yesterday. However, the airport where they had originally been taken to be later on to be evacuated from there, it happens to be a small airport, and our plane, the Airbus, could not. It wouldn't have managed to land there because the runway is slightly short. So they had to change. They had to change to another airport. Now, the first airport was Gondar Airport.
Yes.
And they had to travel from Khartoum. They traveled in buses, about more than 700 kilometers to Gondar Airport. Now, after that grueling journey, they were told, sorry, but the plane cannot land here. So they had to travel to northern Ethiopia now. Yes, and that is about another 800 plus kilometers. So they were really, really tired, but thank God that airport the airport is actually called Gandar Airport in northern Ethiopia. That one was big enough. The runway is okay, and that's how the government managed to get them. And this morning they arrived 2:30, and we received them at the airport, the old airport. Of course, to receive them was General Moses Kainerugaba, the Special Operations Advisor to the President, and also we had the chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs in Parliament, Honorable Nora Bijirwa, and so many and many other officials who were there to welcome them.
Okay. Well, indeed, it was quite a long-stretched process, but eventually it did happen. Now, again, just some facts about what is happening. Because of the ceasefire that was approved by the Sudanese army chief, it did actually allow that very many countries take their people. And this ceasefire is expected to go until Friday of this week. But also the ceasefire in Sudan has definitely allowed most of the countries like UK, countries like UK and also Germany, where we already have a follow-up of several of their residents or nationals arriving in Cyprus. But also looking at the situation there in Sudan, things are a little bit hard. The transport fares are really going high. We know that the prices of food are really going high. And according to the UN, they were actually warning that things may be getting tougher by the minute, not only for the countries that are surrounding Sudan, but even the people in the Sudan nation itself. Talking about, they were looking at the health facilities that they are saying will be getting worse. And they were looking at pregnant women who are about 2,400 they're anticipating for the coming weeks, where it's going to be a little bit hard for them. Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, actually what you're saying is true, because we understand this situation is actually turning into a humanitarian crisis, not only for the Sudanese, but also there are fears that it could, spill to neighboring countries, and that is why, the UN, the African Union, and other, European countries have come out to advise these people, to tell them, please, put your egos aside and, work for the peace of Sudanese. So hospitals are actually, they are overcrowded. Now the worst is that even electricity has been cut off. There is no running water, and once you don't have those two, it really becomes a big problem. And as you said, also now people fear going to the markets, because there's basically nothing that is being sold there, because people are hiding in their homes, and as a result people are now going hungry. So it is a situation that really needs to be curtailed very soon. Otherwise it's going to be a very big crisis, not only for Sudan but also for the rest of Africa.
Okay, and maybe Felix, this is where I would love for you to come in. Clearly we see that this is a crisis that has a spillover effect, and this being part of the East African bloc, I mean, it really does hurt us in ways that we could actually see or not see. But in your opinion, how do you feel this is going to affect us economically, politically, socially? What kind of effect, and what's the magnitude that we're looking at of a crisis like this?
Well, Philomena, as you did put it, there definitely has to be spillovers. And already the evidence is already before our eyes from what Kija just said. If we are already struggling to evacuate probably our students and the business community there, it directly affects on how much we are able now to trade with them. On average, we trade massively, if you want to put it in tonnage, over 1 million tons of goods with Kenya annually. And this includes things like wheat, flour, just to mention but a few. So clearly, if the passages are not opened, you notice that is quite dangerous. But not also forgetting what we do get from the side of Sudan. Sudan being part of those countries that is quite central to business transactions, by the way, in Africa, not just to East Africa, with its direct attachment to international waters, for starters, but also to relate with countries like you have its neighbors like Chad, you have Ethiopia, then down south you have South Sudan, where you have a country which is a member of the East African community. That definitely would mean that there's less business that shall be done in that line. But also, we have also gotten to a point to agree that the presence of peace is not a questioned contributor to transactions, socio-economic at that. You'll want to understand that the absence of peace in Sudan will definitely affect transactions in this country, and for many reasons, which one I can give you. With this direct, you see there's a leadership crisis, and that has been present in Sudan for now about 3 years, about 2, 3,
oh, yes. Ever since, you know, the former president
seemingly overthrowing of Bashir, which was also still being questioned up till today. The reluctance of international community into the interest they have in the matters of Sudan directly. We have seen quite a number of a lucrative approach to these problems. The international community is playing gray area than black and white. We don't know. Unfortunately, they have also lost people there.
Yeah, more than 400
more
actually.
Than 400 and more expected actually.
And those that have actually been injured are more than 4,000. So you can imagine.
So a war like that directly, actually, you with the discussions you have been having, take it even to a greater aspect of the greater Africa at large, because the positioning of Sudan is more or less at the center of Africa, and the spillovers are definitely would be felt by everyone. But is it a threat to us? Yes, definitely it is a threat, you know, in terms of peace and in terms of socio-economic transactions to the farthest. But also, what is there for us to learn? When you ask about its effect to us, there's a lot to pick. We have had this couple of civil wars, because that's what they call it. They're saying it's a civil war. But what makes it a civil war? Is it because two individuals have failed to agree? Is it because two fractions of countrymen don't agree? You know, or is it because it's a power struggle? These are the questions we are asking. We're seeing the same in Guinea. We have seen something similar in Cote d'Ivoire. We have seen in most countries. The question is, why is this happening consistently? And probably my brother Rukidi here, who has done a lot of reporting and could probably also have an idea whether the problem is overstay, you know, or not, because that is the question.
Because we're looking at two major parties in the military, two factions in the military, and it's always rotating around that. I don't know.
Yeah, because actually, the thing is, these two generals, of course, we're talking about the army chief. Now,
Yes.
this is the current president, and that is Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and he has his issues with his assistant or deputy, who is now the vice president, and that is Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, who is the commander of the paramilitary rapid support forces, the RSF. Very, very strong group. It's a group of you know, and it's an elite force. It's an elite force within the army itself. And what experts are saying is that there is something that they have not, you know, agreed upon in as far as, you know, governing Sudan is concerned. The vice, that is the commander of the powerful paramilitary rapid support force, said the ambassador also actually told us that he actually wanted to topple the government, and of course the current president could not accept that. So it is a power struggle, as you put it so correctly, Felix. But also the other thing that we have to really think about and look at solving is the other foreign, you know, militias that could actually take advantage of what is happening in that country, and, you know, cause havoc not only in Sudan but also within you know, this region. Remember, this is a volatile region.
Absolutely.
We've got what the happenings in the DRC,
even
you
in
know,
Sudan, South Sudan.
South Sudan, yeah, things have not yet, you know, gone to where we should actually say yes, this is okay. So it is a big problem, and the earlier it is solved, the better for this region.
Okay, but looking at all of this, there are certain things that we would actually highlight. I could say the relation between military powers and also leadership in most of the African countries. If you focus on this, for example, when you look at some of the fault lines in this crisis, you look at that the central cause of the tension since the 2019 uprising has been the civilian demand for oversight of the military and integration. And as we keep talking about this, somehow the military has to pop up. And again, I could really just want to hear from you, Felix. What do you think about the relation? Is there a relationship between the military, especially in African countries? You're not only going to cut it out to the East African bloc, but African countries, the relationship between the military forces and leadership, how do they get to, you know, integrate into each other? What is the relationship between these two parties or two sections?
You know, it has become tremendously hard for us to draw a line between where the militia does stop in terms of governance.
Yes.
And this directly affects what we call civility or civilization in terms of political practices. It will be hard for us to draw a line, and this is not unique to Sudan or even other countries. This is a normative in at least 95% of African countries. And why? Because of the mannerism in which most of the governments come into power. This that we are seeing, the spring over that we are seeing in Sudan, is directly a direct effect of the previous leader, Bashir. What we are seeing today is not an invasion of the recent 3 years. These are spillovers of the leadership of Bashir. Actually, those who speak from the curtain say this is an asserted government of Bashir, of his comrades holding power for him and protecting him, because the man is supposed to be in ISIS. But he's being housed in a military hospital somewhere in Sudan, and clearly with all these sanctions looming over Sudan, and no one is answering to the same. Now, you may not be able to draw a line where, even when you're talking about civilizing a government that has been overhauled by military, it must have limitations. The same thing happened in Uganda here, if you remember. The question has been about legitimacy.
Yes.
How do you legitimize an illegitimate overthrow of government? It's a process, and it's a constitutional process. It's like it is like taking someone and you shower them. You've picked them from mud. Now, how do you shower this military appearance, military appreciation off to have a human body to? So it's not a small thing. And this that we see is part of the failed legitimacy. These fractions have failed to agree. You don't have, military can't have trust in a civil leadership. That's a given. And the same is evident in all other countries. I can give you countries like Uganda, Rwanda, you can go to Congo, you can talk about all these countries where I've had the military take charge of countries. And for most times it is for genuine reasons, and they can be defendable. Say case in point, the NRA, they are defendable reasons. You go to Rwanda, they are defendable reasons. Go to defendable. So, but the biggest or the hardest part is the transition. The crossover from illegitimacy to a legitimate government is what Sudan is struggling with. Crossing that gap, like Rukidi said here, that you want to civilize a military takeover. You know, grammatically it is even wrong.
It's wrong. Is there a possibility of something like that happening?
It happened in Uganda. That's why I told you it must be constitutional. Because you saw when NRA came in, it had to find a way to legitimize its takeover by constitutionalizing the leader through an election, a democracy. In fact, later on it even made it better when it went and wiped and it enacted a constitution, inclusion, all this putting into place human rights, you know. Now, that is the legitimizing. You can imagine a country where you've killed foreign mission. Americans, even yesterday I had an American was killed yesterday, even in ceasefire. When you see, there was even that the laws that govern war, when you look at the Geneva Conventions, I think one of the additional protocols talks about what governs ceasefire appearances. Killing foreign missions is now, how does Sudan go back and say want to work with the USA?
And also, actually, we're talking about, because the people, the 400 that have died, there are also reports that some staff of the UN have actually been killed.
Last time they killed a French envoy. Live bullets, you can imagine. Now, if this disagreement that is in Sudan has failed to appreciate international law in terms of war, it means that the process of legitimizing whoever will be leader is going to be so hard, and that means, and this even is not even prophecy, that Sudan has gone back about 50 years from civilization. Because of just between 15th April up till today, Sudan has gone back 50 years back away from civilization because of the acts that have happened. When countries start evacuating, there's a problem. Because the other, you've seen in Congo, in Sudan, how many countries have evacuated their missions? This is clearly showing you that, and as my brother here said, that the crack is deeper than what we see. And we are yet to see. We have not seen anything. We are yet to see the worst. Now, the big question is, what can be done, as you say? This country is a conclusive formulation of a bigger body, which is Africa.
Yes.
We have been time and again questioning the contribution, direct or indirect contribution of the African Union into internal conflict or post or interstate conflict. This is an internal conflict. We thank God for that, because it would have been worse if you had Sudan fighting in South Sudan, like it was about 15 years ago. There was that conflict of secession. But it being a civil war, probably it's easier managed because it doesn't spill over. The effects can be contained within. But what is being done? Away from the evacuations, Uganda is getting out their people, and then
because
every other country is taking out their people. Are we leaving the problem for the people in Sudan?
Also the other, excuse me. The other thing that is carrying so many people is the 3 days of ceasefire.
Yes.
Normally, when there is a ceasefire, there shouldn't be any fighting between the two warring factions. Unfortunately, in Sudan, there are reports that even today, as we talk right now, there is fighting. There are gunshots being heard. And not only, gunshots from these small guns, big guns. You have seen the destruction. Pictures have been running on screen. The destruction that has already taken place.
Khartoum is down.
Within just this very short time. So the other thing that these two guys, these two generals should actually think about, as I said in the beginning, let them put their ego aside. Let them think about Sudan as a nation. Let them think about Sudanese. What do they want? They need peace. I think they just need to sit, at a table, and then they come to an agreement. And the African Union, IGAD, all these other organizations within Africa, but also the international community, I think they really need to come in so that they can, bring these guys together, and they come to an agreement, and then they govern the country, and they must actually take it back to civilian rule. And this is one of the problems that is causing this.
But as I've told you, you see, we must also agree, colleagues, that transition is a process. Now, you don't hurry transition. And that was the mistake, in my opinion, when I try to look at this whole falling debris today, is the seeming rushed approach towards transition. Now, there
was failure to appreciate how long it has to take. Yes.
And the pressure was unnecessarily coming from outside than even inside. There has been a lot of pressure from foreign powers to have this transition done. Now, you didn't give room, because there was, actually up till today, there has not been a deliberate cessation or fall apart from the previous leadership of Bashir. There is not evident proof that the leadership of Bashir is aside. You can't prove that up till today to the latter. Because both the generals fighting were generals of
Bashir.
Al-Bashir.
and
Yes.
were all being commanded by him. That's one. Secondly, both of them have served in capacities that have been allegedly said that are some of the reasons why Bashir had to fail in terms of abuse of his human rights, humanitarian, all these things. Allegations are looming both over their heads. Now, there's been questions that are these people holding custody of power for the big boy, former boss, to protect him from international threats and all these things? Because if there was goodwill and we are looking at an overhaul of power, why do we still suffer with the footprints of the previous leader?
Good questions.
Because was there apprehension of the previous leader? Has he been in court? Whether local or international, those are the questions you're asking. So the truth of the matter, that when you want to talk about this, you want to call a swift move from the militaristic, and this has been the biggest contrast, as Philomena asked. When do we say there's a shift from a militaristic approach to governance to a civil? But can it be there? Is it even possible? Is it a reality we see? Can civilians in the situation as Sudan stands run Sudan?
That's a good one.
And this question was asked even at the time when NRA came out of the bush, because the question is this: you're having a general, 2 or 3, a colonel, a brigadier, whatever level. What is their position in this government structure, civil structure you're putting? Are they only are they going to become what we call bystanders of power? And this was a contradiction we suffered also. That's why legitimacy is key. But it's a process that Sudan should have taken into contemplation. But also the lack of, you see, identity in politics is key. Both people in conflict don't have political identity. They have military identity. Okay?
That is why I asked, actually, maybe is there a possibility of having governance or civil leadership without the militia interfering? Is there a possibility of that? Do the two coexist? Do the two live by each other's stand, or there is a possibility of one happening independently?
Do you know why today we are not discussing NUP or NRM ideally? You're discussing military commands. You're discussing this military vis-a-vis this military. There is no, so civil leadership requires political identity, which we don't see in Sudan. So you can't have that you're asking, Philomena. So we are struggling with a war. That's the reality of it.
It's really
actually a war. Now the failure of these two people to identify themselves politically until they agreed to do that, because what would have happened ideally when there was a shift takeover, this that you see should have been dissolved into a political civil umbrella or attire. But that transition failed, and that's why you see this clash. Had any of these people, because they say there's a president seemingly and a vice president, but both of them are commanders of different
forces.
They fail to undress themselves off the military pretense and what they should have. If you wanted to talk about civilization of governance, you should have put on an attire of a political identity, which has lacked. And not until that comes into play, you can't, because there's no identity.
Well, as we speak about this crisis, of course, the more updates coming in, where we are having a former Sudanese politician who is also wanted for alleged crimes against humanity, did what they have termed as a breakout of prison. And I'm talking about Harun. Now, if you don't know about this man, Ahmed Harun was among the people who are being held in Koba prison in the capital, Khartoum. This man here is facing charges, about 200 charges against humanity by ICC, but also looking at about 211 charges of war crimes.
War crimes.
Yes, so there is that, and he's now broken out of prison and he's back into the public, and he says he's here to fight for the Sudanese, for the people. And I'm wondering, is this going to get any better? Is this going to get any worse? Or, I mean, we just have to sit and wait. But also, speaking of which, Here's one thing. I would love to know the kind of impact a crisis like this has on a country like Sudan. Already as it is, it's been struggling. And now we are already here, and I feel like we are moving forward, but then taking about like 1,000 steps backward. What does this exactly, what kind of impact are we seeing a crisis like this having on Sudan, especially for the long term? Are we ever going to get back to the few steps that we had taken forward?
First of all, the saying goes that, constructing something or a building will take, it will take you some time, it will take you some money, but bringing that structure down, it's just a few minutes and it is down.
Yes.
Now, this is what is happening in Sudan. And it is going to have far-reaching consequences in as far as that country is concerned, if, and I say if, it is not, stopped now.
Managed for now, yes.
Because already, as we said, people are dying. And this is just the beginning. If it does not stop now, more Sudanese are going to die. Now, these people that are dying are the manpower that should actually, do their best to ensure that Sudan is on its feet. Let's talk about agriculture, because now it is still, this conflict is still within Khartoum itself.
Yes.
But imagine if it spreads beyond the borders of the capital city and it goes, to other places. So that means it is a full-scale civil war in the country. So nothing will be taking place. People are dying. They cannot go to till their land. They are not productive in any way. So what results into that is that people will go hungry, they will die, the economy will be affected. So this conflict, as I said, and you've just actually talked about that man who, that notorious man there.
Yes, Ahmed.
And it takes me back to what I had said. Now, this is a Sudanese who has also taken advantage of this. Now, remember, I said there are other, foreign armed groups, not only in Sudan, but also in the whole region here. So, I have a feeling if this situation doesn't, is not controlled, these people will take advantage of what is going on. And remember, Sudan has also got its minerals. Yes. They are rich in minerals. They've also got petrol. Oil. They have got oil. So other people can come in and take advantage of that. And you find Sudan has actually gone. It's burnt to ashes as a person can say. So that's why I still say that regional, groups, should come and talk to these people so that they can stop this conflict and end it, so that Sudan, can continue, on its development path.
Well, there are very many challenges, definitely, that will be coming in if this is not managed. I mean, cutting across all sectors. We'll be looking at agriculture. We're looking at industrialization. We are looking at the health sector, the education sector, to mention but a few. We know that right now, as we speak, most of them are stagnant because of the ongoing civil crisis or war that is happening over there. So the prayer here is that we can come to an agreement, or they can come to an agreement, and at least look at the bigger picture of the nationals, of the citizens, because it's not about individuals. But it's very sad to know that both military factions do believe that there is a possibility of victory over the other. So there is none that is willing to step down. And
that is a very bad thing. And before,
yes.
I know you're about to say you are winding this. I want, before you leave, to actually, to commend the government of Uganda for what they have done, today. I understand there are some countries that have actually, gone and evacuated their, the embassy staff,
yes.
But they have actually not taken out their nationals.
Oh.
Yes, but Uganda as a country, it decided to say we are getting all our people. And actually these, the 211 that have come, they're supposed to have been 300 Ugandans living in Sudan by the time
yes.
The conflict erupted. Some opted to remain there for obvious reasons. They have their reasons. Probably they have a lot that they would lose if they left. Not that these ones who left don't have a lot to lose, because some are businessmen, students. Now their education has been, affected. Businesses have been affected, but we must thank the government of Uganda for having enabled those people you're seeing on your screen to have managed to come back home, and not only looking at the embassy staff or government officials working there, but all Ugandans. And I think we should actually commend the government.
Well,
I know you want to say that it's their duty.
It did their duty. Well, it did. Government.
They executed their duty.
But of course, it is commendable.
Yes.
Honestly, without fear of contradiction, no doubt. Because it is a risky area. I mean, you have war, you have what. I'm also understanding that they had to send probably the army to pick to help with the transport, something of that kind. We'll be getting, of course, more information from the Rukidis who are on the ground.
Yes.
Probably in our bulletins later and all that. But we do, and as a matter of fact, it would be only us being naughty not to notice that this is a good thing done by government.
Well, thank you so much, Edward, for the updates, and I can guarantee you, our wonderful viewers, that we'll be having more of these updates coming in, so make sure you continue watching UBC TV on all the proceedings that are happening over there in Sudan. But also, say a prayer for them, because clearly things are not going the right way. Nobody anticipated this to be happening in 2023. We'll go for a short break. Molen will be following through with more on weather and climate. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Glow as you are with the new Spark 10 series smartphone from Airtel in partnership with Tecno. Own the timelines with picture-perfect selfies using the 32-megapixel selfie camera, 256 GB storage, G88 gaming processor, and a strong battery to last the whole day. Towakana.
The Spark 10 smartphone comes with free 3 GB from Airtel and 100% bonus on weekly and monthly bundles every month for 3 months, so you can stay connected to a world of possibilities. Dial *100*5# to enjoy free data. The new Spark 10 is available in all selected Tecno shops countrywide. Airtel, the smartphone network in partnership with Tecno. Stop at nothing.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission. Hello? This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me.
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it? Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera. Refrain from unnecessary engagement with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial *165*5*3# to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Well, it is quite a cold one. I am hoping that you've had your cup of tea quite next to you, because we're also looking at a continuation of most of those rains across much of the capital as well as areas around Lake Victoria. We'll be diving into the weather update a little bit later on. For now, we also want to look at the traffic situation over the roads, and it looks like that rainy system did come with a lot of inconveniences on the road as well. So meaning that most of the roads right now are looking like they are intense in terms of traffic. Now looking at areas of Chibuli, that is if you're using most of those roads to connect to the city center, we are having that is intense traffic that is building up across 7th Street, Access Road, that is Mukwano Road as well. That if you're coming in from the side of Chibuli, those are the areas that you might need to look out for having quite a bit of intense traffic right there. But then again, you do have clear roads. Namuongo Road, if you're also coming in from that side of Muyenga and also towards the areas of Kampala, you might want to use that. It looks like there is a quite clear traffic right there as well. If you're coming in, that is from sides of Muyenga as well as areas of Nsambia. For this morning, we are looking at quite clear traffic for you as well, leading onto Gaba Road, but that is where the traffic starts to build up right there as you head towards Gaba Road as well. That is also those coming in from Chibuli towards Central Town. It looks like you also have a bit of clear traffic for this morning, and much of that as well. As you look at some of the roads that are quite inconveniencing this morning, that is Entebbe Road. As you're heading into town, you do have a little bit of traffic that is building up over there, and one that you can actually look out for if you're joining into a central town. Well, also along the Kampala-Jinja Highway, we're looking at much more of the traffic that is starting to clear, especially as you move from, that is the traffic lights towards Kampala Road. You do have clear traffic indicated over there, so quite okay for this morning. But then again, the upper side, that is where there is much concern for some of the roads in between there. Lumumba Avenue looks to be quite okay in terms of traffic. It's quite clear. Now Nakasero Road is where we have a bit of traffic building up for those joining town. But then again, if you're leaving town using Nakasero Road, it looks okay, indicated by the green line, so that could be quite fine to use this morning. Some of the joining roads over there, that is also joining in down towards City Square, you do have quite clear traffic over there. Shimoni Road as well, looking quite okay. Uganda Road, also that looks okay in terms of traffic, and some of the roads, Peak Road, Nile Avenue, those all look quite okay to use this morning. Now we also look at the satellites that are tapping into the weather system over Uganda and look at what is happening over the country. We did start off with mostly cloudy weather for much of the central part of Uganda as well as the Lake Victoria Basin, and also that is where we had rains. Some of that still in play for most of the areas. Now that system looks to be growing and intensifying, especially towards the western side of Lake Victoria. That means that we will be having more rains over there. Now we also did have a similar rainy system across that is the central part of northern Uganda. That explains the rains that we also had earlier across some of the areas within the central north parts of that is Gulu, Padel, Kitgum. Also did start off with those rains, and that system is also still there, meaning that we could be looking at much more of the rains coming through for this morning. Amuria as well, parts of Soroti, we did start off with a bit of rains over there, areas of Buyende as well, and that actually is still in place, so bringing in cold weather with it as well. And much more of the intensification right there is towards parts of central and western Lake Victoria Basin. We're talking about areas of Masakar, Rengo, Sembabule, Kalisizo. Even as we speak, you have that system that is bringing in rains over there. That is indicated by the darker red to green and blue colors right there on the map. So that is the system that will also be bringing with it quite cold weather for this morning. So it's going to feel quite chilly. And then again, much of Midwestern Uganda, parts of the western sector, we're looking at cloudy conditions building up, and that means that also likely we'll be heading for rainy weather for this morning. Across Mount Elgon Highlands, Mbale, that is also starting off quite cloudy. We do have rains in the forecast for most of those areas. We'll go ahead and look at that forecast, and that is coming in courtesy of the Uganda National Meteorological Authority, and also look at what we're expecting in terms of the numbers for this morning. We'll be looking at much more of the cold weather still expected for the southern sector and the western part. That is where we have much more of the rains expected over there. But also as well, we're looking at quite a sunny morning starting off for the Karamoja region and parts of eastern Uganda. Other than that, most of the other areas have a cloudy weather. The forecast is indicating isolated showers for the central part of northern Uganda. That is Ajumani, Gulu, Kitgum, as well as Padel. We already have rains in the area, and that will be starting off with a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade. We expect that system will cross over into the afternoon. Southwestern Uganda, that is where we have Mbarara, Ibanda, Bushenyi, as well as Ruizi. We are forecasting isolated showers as well, and that is starting off with a chilly 25 degrees centigrade. Also, those rains will continue crossing over into the afternoon. Now, looking at what we expect for the western part of Lake Victoria, that is Masaka, Kalisizo, Sembabule, Rakai. We already have rains in the area, and those will be continuing. That is towards also the afternoon hours. But for this morning, starting off chilly at 24 degrees centigrade, we expect that system will also be intensifying for several places. Across Mount Elgon Highlands, we're looking at also rainy weather in the forecast for you. That is across areas of Mbale, Bududa, Boko, as well as Sironko. That will also be taking on much of the morning, also crossing over into the afternoon. Now, looking at the eastern side of Lake Victoria, that is where we have Tororo, Busia, Iganga, as well as Jinja. We are forecasting isolated showers as well. That will be across several places within that region, and also starting off quite chilly. That is at 24 degrees centigrade. Now we are looking at eastern Uganda. That is where we have Soroti, Katakwi, Amuria, as well as Kumi, and we're having mostly cloudy weather, but rains in the forecast for that area. And we do expect that will be starting off at a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade. But then again, later on in the afternoon, we could be looking at a clearing trend with mostly sunny intervals. That is for eastern Uganda. Now, the eastern part of central, where we have Luwero, Woblenzi, Bururi, Nakaseke. We do have Nakasungula in that category as well. We are forecasting isolated showers. That will be across a lot of areas in that region as well, starting off at 25 degrees centigrade, and also most of those rains will reappear as we head towards the evening. Now we look at the central parts of Lake Victoria Basin, where we have Mukono, Kampala, as well as Entebbe and Wakiso. We are forecasting rains. We still have those already in play for most of the areas around the Lake Victoria Basin. We do expect that those will continue. That is as the morning progresses, as well as crossing over into the afternoon. But for this morning, it is looking a bit chilly for most of the areas there, starting off at 23 degrees centigrade. Now, I also want to cross over and look at some of the projections that have been made globally in terms of the weather that we're looking at for the coming month, or even looking at what next year has in store. Now, there is a big concern about some of the projections that have been made, especially rooting towards the El Nino weather events. Now, this is one event that is associated with two characteristics. It could mean a warmer place for one half of the world, and then a wetter world for another. And that's kind of or results in terms of how it affects the temperature changes. Now, lately the concern is also about the record ocean temperatures that have been warming. Now, so far the reports that are coming in from a survey that has been done by NASA, but also in consultations with the climate scientists from the IPCC and the World Meteorological Organization, is indicating that unprecedented warming could indicate a climate crisis taking place before our eyes, according to experts. Now, temperatures in the world world oceans have broken fresh records, testing new highs for more than a month now, according to the global analysis. And the worry is that if this continues, we could be looking at much more of, oceans warming. Now, we are more concerned about the implications of that, especially as El Nino has now been forecast that in the next month we could be looking at much more of that coming across. Now, the implications would mean that you look at more heat waves, you look at more flooding, especially for the parts of Africa where we expect different events. Is that the southern part of Africa would be experiencing warmer weather. Now, that could be related with drought events as well. But the Eastern Africa could mean that we have more of what weather activities. That means that you have likelihood of flooding, you have likelihood of landslides, or the events that are associated with increase in rainfall. Now, also the forecast that was made does indicate the possibility of having drier conditions for other parts of the world, like Australia, that already did come out to see the report that was given out, saying that if Australia goes for an El Nino event associated with drier weather, they could actually see a lot of intense destruction, especially in terms of heat waves coming through. Now, also seemingly small average increases in temperatures, especially ocean temperatures, are posing a threat to marine life, and this is what has been happening. Now, scientists have analyzed rising temperatures in the world oceans, that is getting an average from 2011 to 2020, and of course that is compared to pre-industrial levels, that is up to 1980. And what is indicated over there, when you look at the red colors on that map, or orange to red colors, that is indicating a warmer surface. And obviously you look at the oceans have been warming faster according to what the projections earlier showed. Obviously the land warms faster, but it does pose a threat when we see oceans warming, because they are again what is keeping the balance, because they trap some of that heat. But now if they are also getting warmer, what is expected is that we'll start to lose some of the species within the lakes, and that is where the marine threat comes in. There has been a lot of talk about the loss of coral reefs. That is they do depend on the temperature changes within the oceans, but now that they have been warming, then you see a lot of loss that is over there. And also they will lack their ability to absorb the greenhouse gases, and specifically carbon dioxide, which is where now it poses a huge challenge in the climate action, because you look at the fact that oceans have been helping to trap some of those gases, but now the fact that we are now seeing changes in there means that this is not going to be up to a level that we expect, meaning that still will be fueling into the climate crisis, and that is where a lot of concern is also coming up. We did see earlier the predictions from the World Meteorological Organization as well, looking at how 2022 was associated with La Nina event. That would indicate a lot of rise in temperatures, especially for the part of Africa as well, and that has also connected to the failed rainy seasons that we've had across East Africa. And also explains the fact that farmers are seeing changes in their seasons. They are actually talking about why is it that the rains are coming in late, why is it that they are actually not everywhere, and then again they go very fast. And even in the rainy season, you're interrupted with a lot of dry spells. That is the fact that we also had La Nina events that were associated with 2022 leading into 2023. Now, what the World Meteorological Organization came out to say is that after having looked at the past 8 years being the warmest on record, we could see 2023 or 2024 breaking that whole record to become the warmest. And obviously that will still be fueling into more extreme weather events that no one is looking forward to those. So again, there was a call after this analysis, there was a call to governments to scale up their commitments and targets to fighting climate change, but also make sure that you have plans to adapt. How are you going to cope with the changing climate? That is still a lot of the advisories coming through, as most of these reports come up to warn countries of the situation and what is happening globally. Well, that is it from Weather and Nature this morning. We will be going for Good Morning Uganda agenda. Later than that, Ruben will also be coming in more on the sports highlights. That is a session that a lot of people are not looking forward to, or maybe looking forward to, after the Arsenal-Man City crash last night. But yes, he will be here to take you through that. Later than that, we'll also be going for Good Morning Uganda Extra. I want to wish you a good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
It's the encounters with our majestic gorillas. The thrill of taking on the falls of the Nile River. The joy of discovering new traditions and a lot more. Join us at the 2023 Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo from the 26th to the 29th of April at the Commonwealth Resort, Munyonyo. Rediscover our country's uniqueness and see what the tourism sector has in store for you. Visit www.poate.co.ug to secure your spot and get set to learn, network and explore. The Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo is brought to you by the Uganda Tourism Board in partnership with Competitiveness and Enterprise Development Projects. Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
Peak of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial star 165 star 5 star 3 hash to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.